So, after having quite positive feedback on my on what are my plans for the Hepworth site in the Loxley Valley, I thought I'd just do a short video just outlining, looking at the map. I've just printed this off Google Earth, as to the site, and so hopefully people can see where the various developments would happen. So we have Loxley Road up here, have the water treatment work there, so north, south, west and east. So the site is basically this here, that there, this here. Now the site is actually bigger than that. Apparently the site is 100 acres. Well, these three sites, if I remember right, I think that's about 6.5 acres, that's about 3 acres, and this again is about another 5 or 6 acres. So that comes to less than 20 acres. That comes to what, about 15, 16 acres. And apparently the whole site is 100 acres, but I believe it can only come to 100 acres if you take in large swathes of this woodland. Now clearly this is a very steep valley side, and there's no way that could be built on, even if you were to get rid of the woodland. And as I'm pretty certain, this is actually ancient woodland, so that's going nowhere. But basically it's really quite simple. My proposal for a wildlife centre along the lines of the butterfly farm in Rotherham will be on this site, and actually it's around about the same size as the butterfly farm in Rotherham. This is a little bit bigger, so you've got more scope to do a little bit more. This would be the site that will be rewilded completely. This, as I say, this is about 3.5 acres, something like that, if I remember. So this is the lowest part of the site. The Loxley flows along here, like that. So that is so suitable for an extra pond, or just rewilding, all the concrete being taken away, landscaped, planted up with native, marginal plants, whatever's appropriate. Obviously you have to do a proper ecological assessment of the area to see what appropriate planting you would put in there, as to how often the river is likely to flood into that area. And then this site at the bottom, this as I understand it is the old rags site, because there used to be two separate companies, Hepworths and Rags, but I think at one point, maybe somebody will correct me who knows the history of this area a little bit more than me, before Hepworths eventually closed down, they bought out Rags, and so it all became the Hepworth site. But this site, I think, is still still known as the Rags site. And if I just zoom in a little bit, it's not focusing, it's too close. Actually, what we shall do is, so I've zoomed in on Google Earth. So if we look at, see the little row of cottages there that already exist, and the river runs here, just past this site. I envisage a row of terraced houses, about 10 or 12 there. This is that brick building that I talked about on the third video, which would make a nice community centre, stroke village hall, stroke shop, stroke visitor centre, stroke museum, you know, with exhibitions about the local valley, the history of the valley, etc. This is remaining, apparently. This is still viable, but at some point, then I suppose you could say there could be an option of the businesses or business here. I'm not sure exactly what he is. It says Spur Classic Cars there, but I don't know if there are other businesses there as well. Maybe being relocated to a more industrial site, and then you could put a small number of houses on here. But I envisage a lot of this area that is presently concreted to be taken away again to allow the river to expand into a floodplain. So all the housing that will go on here would back onto the woodland. So you would have a maximum, I guess, on this site of somewhere in the region of 50 homes, no more than that, and that would include the 10 or 12 homes on here, which leaves another 38 to 40 for on here, and possibly a few extra here again after the river is widened there. Obviously, if you're going to take away a lot of the concrete and you're going to widen the river, there may be a few trees that are on the side of the river that inevitably would have to go, but that would soon regenerate and soon come back, in the same way that when the improvements were made at Malin Bridge several years ago. You know, a lot of the growth has comes back quite quick, but the river is in a much better shape there than it was prior to the flood in 2007. So that's it. It's really quite simple. You know, we have a good balance there of providing some housing. Ideally, from doing a little bit of research, it seems, you know, we talk a lot about social housing, and quite rightly, but Sheffield also seems to be short of executive housing. So, you know, these terraced houses could be relatively cheap to sell, or some kind of social housing could be there, small amounts. But I envisage most of this, if not all of it, to be decent executive housing. So that's it. So we have, even though it's one big site, there are 3 separate sites that seem to fit very well what I'm proposing. But of course, the major problem, as always, is the cost, where that funding is going to come from. I can only see it coming from one place if we're going to get the best possible outcome for this site, and that's government funding and probably funding from various other public sources, maybe some lottery funding, any funding from groups like Veolia, if there's any of that, if that's an option, or any planning money that's available. That seems to be the only option that's going to be viable to enable an appropriate development to go on these sites. And I'm talking about them now as almost as 3 sites, even though I still envisage this as all being one, and there would be a bridge over the water there linking that into this kind of wildlife area. As I said before on one of the videos, a kind of very mini Potterick car. There could be a bird hide or 2 there. And again, you know, you could landscape it, again, depending on what the outcome of an ecological assessment says, you know, you could develop, you know, the world is your oyster. You could develop an area that is very much needed in this location, and then obviously the major attraction here, and so that this major attraction will be accessed via there, and then for the housing, this is Rowell Lane here. The new housing will be accessed via that road there. Shouldn't be a problem for the farm there. There's quite a wide track already. So yeah, and obviously, you know, something I've not mentioned, but obviously the hotel. Let's have a look at the closer map. Where is it? Just zoomed in a little bit. This is quite an extensive site. There is so much room to develop there. You know, there may be an issue. Another thing that was kind of brought up is obviously there is some antisocial behaviour that's been going on, mainly I suppose because this is a derelict site, so derelict sites always attract that kind of behaviour. Once it ceases to become derelict, then that tends to go away. But it might be advisable to have some small scale kind of work, live, work, live, whatever the term is, units somewhere around here, just to keep, I mean, there would obviously be CCTV cameras in the establishment as well, but so that there is somebody living down here. I mean, the pub, you know, as I envisage this being a pub, so there would be somebody who would live in the pub, obviously, but there may be the odd small unit that you could, and the hotel, so there's going to be people staying there, but there could be the odd small unit, possibly, that where people could live and work from in this area. But I still foresee most of this area as being car parking, but maybe, you know, somewhere back here, or even a little row of terraced units here might be an option. Again, most of this will be taken away so that you can widen the river. The River Loxley, as you see, is there. Water treatment works. Loxley Fishery is just out of the image here. So yeah, so that's just another short video, just showing you on the map what I'm proposing. I think I've covered all the bases, but you know, let's see if it can get off the ground. Let's see if we can actually get this done and take away this eyesore that's been here for so long, and is so unnecessary when this could be adding such great value to the Sheffield Lakeland area, and the city as a whole. So with that, it's nearly 15 minutes, I'll say goodbye. Goodbye for now.